Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and today's video is going to be something very different. I'm in a different room, can't even be bothered to sit up the table and shoot this video properly, and the one thing I want to talk about in this video is I don't actually think I like playing games that much. I've come to the conclusion that even though I've got this gaming channel, I don't play that many games. I'm more interested in the tech behind games and, well, the tech behind games consoles, rather than actually sitting down and playing a game. Have I always been like that? Pretty much. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do play games, but most of the time I play them for the purpose of video research, or it's because it's a mod or a hack or something that you shouldn't be able to do, and that is where my passion lies. Rather than actually playing the games themselves, it's what I can do on that console. So I was looking through my collection of handheld consoles, because that is where I'm at. I do like handheld consoles, and I've got an original Game Boy which I took apart and cleaned and retrobrighted and put back together and installed some new battery contacts. So there's the tech behind that, restoring a console. Then I've got my Game Boy Advance SP, pretty much the only console so far that I haven't modded in any kind of way, but I have opened it and cleaned the power switch, so I didn't just buy that to play that. Number of DS lights I've had, which I've modded, turned into macros. I've even turned my last DS, original DS, I turned that into a macro. My 3DS, well, that's modded, and it runs all sorts of different software on it. I'm not really into hardware mods. I do take consoles apart to fix them and restore them and, I don't know, replace screens or make sure the buttons work fully, but I'm more into software mods than anything else. I've got a DSi and I've got a DSi LL, which you've probably seen in lots of videos. The DSi, which is sitting right next to me, will not be modded or even running custom firmware, because I want a stock one. This is a Japanese one. But my DSi LL, well, that's been through the mill. It's been opened, it's been cleaned, it's been restored. It's running custom firmware, Twilight menu, so I can run just about whatever I like on it. Then I've got my PS Vita currently, which is a slim model. That's been hacked to run custom firmware. My passion lies really not in playing games on systems, but the ability to do things on a system that you can't do, whether that be flash carts or custom firmware, or, I mean, there are some things like the macros. I do like making macros, but it's a fairly simple process in comparison to some of the, well, first of all, more professional looking macros, but there are people that will take, I don't know, like this DSi, and change the charging port to USB-C, or we'll add some fancy thing into it to make it different. So for me, I don't actually spend that much time playing games. I'm more of I restore consoles. If they break, then I fix them. And I talked about this once before, that I really need to stop doing that and play a bit more games. And here we are, about 18 months, 2 years later, I'm still doing it. I still look at consoles to buy, and very rarely do I buy a console that's fully working or in the best of condition, because, well, first of all, it saves me a bit of money, and second of all, I like the challenge. When I bought my 3DS, it had a heavily scratched bottom screen. Saved me an absolute fortune, and a new screen didn't cost that much, and it wasn't that difficult to put in. So I do like to repair consoles, I do like to mod consoles to some degree, but when it comes to games, I don't really, I'm not a gamer as such. The most games that I like to play are things that you shouldn't do. So just recently I looked at Mario Kart for the DS, and then looked at what unofficial mods there were, so things like Kart or CTGP Nitro. I also looked at this McDonald's game that they were offering, Grimace's Birthday, and then there's lots of game on my Vita. I run a lot of homebrew stuff, things like the FIFA 22 port, which Obviously it's not official, it's a rebuild of FIFA 15 with some new rosters, etc. Or the RE3 for the 3DS, where you can run the GTA 3 on a 3DS. So for me, a console is about what I can push it to do. Even with my home consoles, I've got a Wii upstairs that is modded so I can play Super Nintendo games. I've got a PS2 Slim, and the first thing I did was dug out my memory card, which is a free McBoot memory card. Then I could run things off of USB. So I like the whole premise of gaming, but I like to push consoles past what they're supposed to do, past what Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft tell it to do. Even with the Xbox, I had an original Xbox a few years ago. I modded that. I changed the LEDs in the front of it. I put a massive hard drive in. It was just something to do. So I don't just go out, buy a console and then just buy a big collection of games for it. With the one exception was my PS3. Absolutely loved my PS3. Never run custom firmware on that. Had a huge selection of official games, but every other console I've had, it's a project rather than a games machine for me. So do I really... I do sit there every so often and think, right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to look at the selection of games I've got on my shelf, and I'm going to find a console to play them on, and I'm going to play them as they should be, as Nintendo or Sony, whoever, whichever console it's going in, as they intended. But I never do. The other day I thought, well, I'm going to give Mario Kart DS another bash. Absolutely fantastic. I love that game. That is one of the few handheld games that I did play a lot of over the years. It's been out sort of like 15 odd years plus, and I played it. But within about half an hour of playing it, my mind wandered into, well, I wonder if there's some different versions or some mods. And I thought, well, actually I haven't really looked into DS Homebrew that much. 3DS Homebrew, yes. PS Vita Homebrew, yes. Even PSP Homebrew when I had one. Great, I had lots of games for that. But I've not really looked into DS Homebrew very much. So then I stumbled across these Mario Kart mods. With the 3DS, I found a Mario Kart 7 mod, CTGP7, started messing around with that. Most of the software on my consoles, if they're running custom firmware or if they've got a flash cart, will have some form of homebrew on them. Doom, for instance. Now that is a game that I try and get running on every single console. PSP, Vita, I've even had it running on a DS Lite or an original DS. Don't think I've got it on my DSi, but that's something I need to change. Well, there you go. That is a bit of a ramble from me. If you've watched my channel, you know there's 400 odd videos and growing. A lot of them are game videos, and there's quite a few of them are just straightforward gameplay videos. Then you've got the videos for sort of mods and ROM hacks, etc. There's quite a few on there for tips and tricks on how to fix things, or if you've got a problem with one of your consoles. And that's an area I like to do, because consoles do go wrong or they break. So something as simple as the very simple hinge fix for a DS Lite, slap an elastic band around it. But then you've got things like, well, my 3DS will only turn on to a blue light. That could be just an inserted SD card gone wrong. So I do like to offer budget fixes for things, fixes for common issues, and simple tips and tricks. But in terms of gameplay, it's something I really need to do. I need to put down the console. I need to stop looking at things that could be done on it, and look at what Nintendo or Sony or SNK intended for the console to be like, because you don't get that full experience. Oh no, that's not true really, because the reason I like custom firmware and flash carts is because it opens up the system, especially with something like the PS Vita. That is a console that it's got a great selection of official games, but once you install custom firmware and open that up, it can do so much more. But it does kind of detract from why you bought that console in the first place. What attracted you to a DS or a 3DS or a PSP? Because nobody goes and buys a console because, of the homebrew potential. Not originally anyway. A lot of homebrew hacks aren't out for quite some time. But I'm gonna start playing games more. I'm gonna take a look at the list of games I've got and get back into them. So things like Little Big Planet on the Vita, awesome game, never finished it. Same with New Super Mario Bros on the DS. I've been playing it for a very, very long time, haven't completed it. Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS is an amazing game, but I have this huge habit of playing them for quite some time and then stopping and never getting back into them. One of my latest games that I got into recently was Kirby Mass Attack. Played that for about 2 weeks solid, nearly every day, and then didn't play it anymore. The same with Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. Excellent on the PSP, excellent on the DS. Played it for quite some time and then stopped playing it. So that is just a small selection of the games that I really should get back into. Killzone Mercenaries, one of the few games I actually completed on the Vita. Now I'm into Resistance Burning Skies, a fantastic game that I sort of play for a very long time and then stop playing. Even with the odd time that I play a home console, Call of Duty 3 on the PS2 is my home console game at the minute. But I stop and start. So there you go, I need to play more games. Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.